This is lesson 2 in our discussion on lighting and rendering techniques using 3D Studio Max 2009 and Mental. In this lesson we'll discuss global illumination within Max. As you can see here, we have two examples of one that is directly illuminated and one is with global illumination checked on. Now what global illumination is, it's a generic term used to describe a lighting algorithm that takes into account both direct and indirect illumination. Direct illumination is lighting that comes from one light source. When this light source hits a surface and it bounces off, it only casts light on that one surface. And actually within direct illumination there is no bounce off or light spillage, as you can see here. Indirect illumination is when light rays casted from that direct light bounce and reflect off multiple surfaces. Now these light rays contain within them photons. And what a photon is it's the basic unit of light. So when a single photon touches a surface, it takes with it some of the color and light information. And in Max we can actually control the number of bounces, so when the light hits the sphere, we can control how far the lighting or the color information scatters. So you can see on my sphere, my white floor is taking into account some of the green lighting or green color information from my sphere. You can see from my blue box that the shadows and some of the other lights, that you can see that the blue from the color of the box is spilling over into my shadows and onto the wall and floor. Now if we begin where we took off on our last lesson, you'll notice that we're kind of back to where we started. If I go ahead and render out my scene, you'll notice that I'll have my basic direct illuminated scene. So the way you turn on global illumination within Max is you go up to rendering, renderer, rendering, render setup, and then under the Indirect Illumination tab, just scroll down to Global Illumination, Caustics and Global Illumination, and check on Global Illumination. Now what you'll notice is we have not changed any of the calculations that are within here or on our light itself. So the results, by just checking it on, are not going to be what you're originally looking for, or what you might. And many times you want to actually light from actual reference. So you can see that our scene itself is sort of blown out. Now there's two reasons for this, for our scene being so blown out. One, we haven't edited our light at all, which you can see in my light parameter here. And two, we haven't edited the strength of our photons or how long the photons stay in our scene, which is controlled here under decay. Now you can control the light parameters here under mental array direct illumination, which we'll get into in another tutorial, where we can control our energy of our photons, our caustic photons, and our global illumination photons. We can control them all within the light itself, or in our render setup, if you go under the global illumination section, you go down to light properties. What this does is, this isn't the light properties for just one light. This is if we have multiple lights in our scene, we can control the amount of decay that affects all of them. So let's dull down the life of our photons that are within our scene. So the higher the number, the higher you increase this, the faster that your photons will die off. And what's interesting about decay is even the smallest tweaks will render entirely different results. So if we jump up to 5 and we render it, you can see that it's a great deal different than what we had before. And getting a good result using global illumination and photons is sort of it's based on knowing the actual scale. So normally you want to use real world units and playing with the different parameters, or knowing what the actual lighting was in the original setup of your photograph. So if I set my multiplier down to 0.5, I'm controlling the overall strength of my light, and I render that out. you can see that